Good evening, everyone. Time for another member update. So we're going to start out with the silver chart here. This is actually the one from FinViz, and you can see that now we have a very bearish formation coming in here, especially with this reversal spike and turning into a rolling over downtrend. So you can see a potential of breaking the trend line that would form right there, and a potential new low buying opportunity in silver, if you can believe that. What an incredible deal for those of you who have tremendous profits in cryptocurrencies. I know right now I just make thousands a day. I don't know how long it's going to go on, but for those of you who have tremendous profits in cryptocurrencies, there may be a good time to actually flip some of those profits into physical silver. I think that both are going to have a huge role going forward. I think that the cryptocurrencies are going to explode first, but I think that the banking sector, when that implodes, then also the precious metals are going to go up. Silver probably is going to go up more, but we're going to be watching real close here for a buying opportunity, looking for a penetration of that $15 low. Also want to keep an eye on the premiums, because premiums tend to expand when things get that cheap. But we could be looking at the best buy in silver that we've ever seen, considering that the last time we visited $15 was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And when you consider, you know, how much inflation goes up, how much the money is devalued, how much more debt we're in, we're talking about an incredibly cheap price for silver. So let's jump over to the cryptocurrencies real quick here. We're going to spend the rest of the night on this Illuminati banker expose, and it's going to show why it's so important that as many people as possible exit the corrupt banking system. And I think cryptocurrencies and precious metals are going to be the way out for the vast majority of people who escape those systems. But those systems are so corrupt, it's beyond belief. You'll see in this interview. So interesting thing here, we have a new coin coming in here. If we value these by market cap, coming in at number 6. Is that right? Actually number 4 at $921 million is Gnosis. I don't know anything about the coin. It just debuted. You can see it's above Dash and Litecoin, which is really incredible. So I don't know what this coin is about, and I'd be very cautious about jumping on the bandwagon of a new coin quickly. Definitely something you can do if you want to do a quick flip, a quick trade. But if you stay in for any amount of time, I've seen these new coins come out. I've seen them go down 90 to 99% before they turn around and then go up. So you have to be very careful about buying a new coin, and I'm very suspicious about a coin that debuts at nearly $1 billion market cap. That's something we've never seen before. So we'll keep an eye on Gnosis going forward. So let's jump over to this interview. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's like 39 minutes, but it's very hot right now, making the circles. And it's very interesting. This is a guy who was a self-made entrepreneur. You can watch the whole thing. It's in Dutch, and it's translated into English using a computer translator. But he started off as a independent entrepreneur, working very hard, and he ended up having a conversation with someone involved in banks, international banking, and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. This person wanted 10% of everything he made, but he told him when he went into it, he said that you're going to have to put your conscience in the deep freeze, because there's going to be a lot of things that you find out there. And so we're going to start now where he's talking about some of the things he found out when he was involved with this international banking system.
However, on the other hand, you had a great amount of responsibility and you learned more and more about the real world, since through the financial world you learn all of the actual truth.
So you say all, in what regard?
Well, your clients give you glimpses of how the world really works. In hindsight, I still didn't know everything. But I did know a lot. Because my clients were banks who didn't want blood on their hands. But within those banks there always is a number of people who know damn well what is going on. So, like 1% within a bank knows the truth of the matter regarding the happenings within the world. Which is not surprising, considering they are involved in the flows of money. Those are your clients. You also have governments to deal with, multinationals. You have to deal with secret services, and what they now call terrorist organizations. You get all of the groups that are involved with the big money as clients. Then you start seeing the connections. So, they might be compartmentalized as you just mentioned, regarding knowledge. But because I am in the middle, I see how they relate to another. You see the money coming from this place, then going to that place, etc. You keep gaining information and thereby an overview of what is really going on.
So do you have to serve and keep all of those groups happy, including terrorist organizations? You were trying to keep everybody happy?
Yes.
My God.
That was my job.
Keeping all the balls in the air.
Yes, indeed. So one of the things that I found out, I did not know that before, but now I do, is about secret services. You think they are there to serve and protect a people, country, etc., but they actually turn out to be the criminal organizations, to be more precise. The system is heavily so. We are talking about financing wars, creating wars, so basically creating a lot of misery in this world. So, lots of conflict. And then I think to myself, if only people knew what the world is really like. Secret services will stop at nothing. Nothing. But they also have their flows of money, because if they are trading in drugs or weapons or, for that matter, people, all that money has to go somewhere. Everything has to be financed.
You say if, but you could confirm they are doing this?
All of them? All of them? So the entire world as we think we know it, is just an illusion we believe in. Which is something you find out in this line of work and where it all went wrong for me, to put it that way.
Right. You mean, finally that is.
In hindsight, yes, it was for the best, but my freezer started to malfunction. There were things happening. For example, I went to a different trade market and one of my colleagues there said, "Ronald, you remember that case with the Italian lira? I sometimes mention that during talks as well. Do you remember those deals?"
You need a website. Why not do it yourself? With Wix, you can create your own professional website.
That during talks as well. Do you remember those deals, in which we did massive dumping of the lira, which reduced the value of the currency, which caused a company in Italy to be hit in such a way, they went bankrupt. And then you hear at the exchange, you remember that successful deal with the lira? Yes. And then they say, did you know that the owner committed suicide and left a family behind? Things like that. And back then we laughed at it. Altogether, all of us. We looked down on people, mocked them. It was just a product, waste. Everything was worthless trash. Nature, the planet, everything could burn and break.
Just useless parasites.
Just as long as we met our goals, as long as we were growing, many of my colleagues ended up drinking or using drugs. Not me. Maybe I should have.
Or not.
No, in hindsight, it was for the best and I'm happy to still be alive. However, all those horrible things started to eat at me.
Can you give an example? Because I can sense a lot of terrible things happen to you.
Yes. It is difficult for me to talk about.
I can feel that, but only whatever you wish to share is all right.
Yes, I only talk about things I want to tell. But it does evoke lots of emotions, and with my conscience not being in the freezer, it touches me deeply.
Yes, I feel the same way. All right. Can you tell me the worst thing that has happened that caused the tipping point in your situation?
Well, that was the beginning of the end. You get so deep into these circles. And you sign a lifetime contract, not with blood or anything, to never disclose names of companies, organizations or people. I think that is why I am still alive. You have to stick to it. If we are talking about the worst things that I have experienced, I just told you about things that made the freezer glitch. My conscience started to show itself. Let's put it this way. I was training to become a psychopath and I failed. I did not complete the training and didn't become a psychopath. My conscience came back, and the most difficult part for me was, because I had such a great status there, I was a success. I was trusted with the people playing at this level.
Mensen in deze wereld die dus op dat niveau speelden.
To put it carefully, most of these people followed a not very mainstream religion. So, you have Catholics, Protestants, all sorts of religions. These people, most of them, were Luciferians. And then you can say, religion is a fairy tale. God doesn't exist. None of that is real. Well, for these people, it is truth and reality. And they served something immaterial, what they called Lucifer. And I also was in contact with those circles, only I laughed at it because to me they were just clients. So, I went to places called Churches of Satan.
So now we are talking about Satanism.
Yes. So, I visited these churches, just as a visitor dropped by. And then they were doing their holy mass with naked women and liquor and stuff. And it just amused me. I didn't believe in any of this stuff, and was far from convinced if any of this was real.
It was just a spectacle to you.
Yes. In my opinion, the darkness and evil is within the people themselves. I didn't make the connection yet. So I was a guest in those circles, and it amused me greatly to see all those named women and the other things. It was the good life. But then at some point, I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad. That was the breaking point. Children.
You were asked to do that?
Yes. And I couldn't do that.
Would you like to stop for a moment, by the way?
No. And then I started to slowly break down. I lived through quite a lot as a child myself, and this really touched me deeply. Everything changed. But that is the world I found myself in. And then I started to refuse assignments within my job. I could no longer do it, which made me a threat. I was no longer capable of functioning optimally. My performance started to shake and I had refused tasks. I had not participated. The purpose of the whole thing, eventually, in that world, is that they have everybody in their pocket. You need to be susceptible to blackmail. And blackmailing me proved to be very hard if I look back on it. They wanted to do that through those children. And that broke me.
Is that, you are not telling me something new, what they also do in politics?
If you Google this, you'll find enough worldwide witness accounts to know this isn't a Walt Disney fairy tale. Unfortunately, the truth is that worldwide they have been doing this for thousands of years. I once studied theology, and even in the Bible you find references to these practices with Israelites. The reason the first 10 tribes were banished to Babylonia was because of these rituals with children, including the sacrificing of children. So this is pertinent. All this made me believe, because I realized there was more to life than meets the eye. There is a whole invisible world. It is real. You really do talk about a dark force and a manifestation of light. So, I resorted to studying theology to make sense of it all.
And psychology as well, if I remember correctly?
Yes, but that I did in my first life, because through commercial psychology, mass psychology, I was able to manipulate situations for my own benefit.
That is scary, because if you dig into that you find Tavistock Institute and mind control, MK Ultra, Monarch and the like.
Yes, that is correct, but that was all part of the job. Through training at the job, I got into that more deeply, because when you are making deals, you also need to manipulate the media. You have to manipulate lots of things because nothing can be seen as it is. Everything has to appear to be something different. You see the people as a flock of sheep. You put a couple of border collies and drive them in a direction. And to be honest with you, I still see that happening around me. People are still, through the systems and methods that we ourselves used to use, being treated in that same way, and it still works. People still don't understand how it really works and are still on the level of as long as I have my beer and whatever, completely self-absorbed, also a survival mechanism. I mean, it is the program after all. But you still see how stupidly easy it is to put people in a certain direction, when you are the one pulling the strings. That is
mass psychology.
Yes, and later, much later, in all those studies and discoveries, I found a document which they are claiming is bullshit, of course, the Protocols of Zion. And nowadays I recommend everyone to read the whole of that incredibly boring document. Just work through it, read it though.
We are also talking about Zionism.
Yes, of course. If you read the Protocols of Zion and really study them and understand, then it is like reading the newspaper of the daily life. How from their position of ultimate power, and ultimate it has literally become.
So we'll stop it there. Very interesting that he goes into Zionism and blaming the Jews. Now, I think you all know that I personally believe that the Protocols of Zion was written by the Jesuits to create anti-Semitism and blamed on the Jews. I don't at all believe that the Jews are in charge of everything. I believe if anybody's in charge of everything, it's the Jesuits. If we're talking about earthly powers, if we're talking about non-earthly powers or non-human powers, and obviously we're talking about Satan, Lucifer, etc. So very interesting interview. I'll also point out that he mentioned that he could not mention the companies, organizations, or people, yet he was able to mention the Jews. So is he actually admitting that it's not the Jews in an offhand way? Very interesting interview. I encourage you to read the whole thing. Listen to the whole thing, I mean. This just confirms all the things that we've been studying for a long time, including the information from George Webb and all the conspiracies that we've been talking about for so long. And that's another reason why it's so important that all of us do our part. I know most of us are just trying to protect ourselves financially, but actually what we do when we begin to leave the current system and participate in these new systems such as precious metal stacking, not just investing in paper precious metals, but stacking physical metals, and then of course stacking cryptocurrencies, because that's basically what you're doing with cryptocurrencies, is stacking them. And we can see here with Bitfinex, we're trying to get through 1600. We've got a big move here down to 1460. Now we're on the way back up. So a lot of action in the cryptocurrencies. Will this be able to take down the banking elite, these monsters that control all of society, including all the politicians? And it was very clear there, I believe for some time, that the reason why they use their pedophilia and human sacrifice is for them to have blackmailability of all the people they want to control. If they have pictures of you participating in these things, then they own you. So that's pretty scary to think about how many people they actually control. The only way I see, prior to the Lord coming back and ending this whole thing, to weaken these people is to exit their systems and to get into systems that they don't control. And we'll talk to you next time.